Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. When you're investing in a company and you're allocating a sizable portion of your capital or your portfolio into a company, it's incredibly important to recognize that when something happens in the world, from a macro perspective or geopolitical perspective, and your company is impacted by that, that's when the due diligence gets bigger, that's when the investigative journalism becomes stronger, and that's when you really try to understand what is my investment going to do right now, what is my company that I'm invested in going to do right now, and what can I do to make myself feel more assured if I'm having doubts or if I'm trying to understand better about the investment that I made. Palantir is one of my most sizable positions. I'm sure it is for a lot of you as well. Palantir is one of those companies that says we try to protect the world when things go bad in the world, and by protecting the world, they're trying to play a major role from a technological and data analytics perspective, which in today's day and age, when things go bad, you need technology and you need data to solve really bad problems or at least mitigate bad things from happening. And Palantir wants to be one of those companies that is playing a major role. CEO Alex Karp has said that bad times are good for Palantir because when things go bad, governments in particular try to rely on technology that can help mitigate bad things from further happening. This is what we saw with COVID vaccine distribution in the United Kingdom when Palantir was a central role that landed them a $34 million contract for 2 years to actually help UK's system modernize and actually become more efficient and productive. What's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now is bad. And it is no secret the elephant in the room is that everyone believes that Palantir, because of the nature of the company, because of the statements from the CEO months before this black swan event, which is happening in Russia and Ukraine happened, we're theorizing that, look, we think that Palantir is playing a fundamental and significant role in helping to solve this problem, address this problem, and mitigate the harms of this problem because there are many externalities that are happening as a result of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Well, we think we found something in the Palantir community. This account, EtherSquare, is a very, very good friend of mine, and he did some digging up, and he came up with something really, really interesting. His argument is that Palantir is officially helping with the Ukraine situation. I found this link, and we're going to talk about it in a second. It didn't exist until a couple of weeks ago. I searched this and found out it's a Lithuanian government initiative to help Ukrainian refugees. So when you go to that link, this is what you get. It's stripruskartu.foundry.gov.com/multipass/login/o. Now, we've seen this before with other companies that work with Foundry. You can replace that link with Pfizer, or you can replace that link with United Airlines, and you kind of get to the same link. This is a dossier that I did. I'll put it in the description of this video. Back in December, where EtherSquare, the same person, found a bunch of these links that all go to an actual link, not a broken link, based on companies that are potentially working with Palantir. What is the significance of this link? Well, the point is this link works. You can't just put any random nonsense right here and expect the link to work. So for example, if I just take out one letter, if I take out the U out of the first part of the domain name, the site can't be reached, which means there is something significant to that term, that U being there, in order for the site to load up. And if the site loads up, that means that the site is a real site. Why? Because it leads us back to this entry login, foundry.gov.com, log in, which means if you have a foundry.gov subscription, right, if you're part of the governmental agency that works with Foundry, you need to log in to access the actual software. Well, when you go to this website in and of itself, it's just a quick Google search. This is the first link that pops up. Assistance for war refugees from Ukraine. Are you fleeing a war in Ukraine? We'll find you a temporary home in Lithuania. Sign up and our volunteers will take care of you. This is amazing. When there is a refugee crisis, so the likes of what's going on in Ukraine, where people have to leave their homes because there is a literal war going on in their home country, those people become refugees, meaning they have to go somewhere. They need to get help. They need to get aid. They need to get food. They need to get shelter. They need assistance. These are the most vulnerable people in the world right now because they have nothing because they were forced out of their territory. Why were they forced? Because it's either that or you risk death. So they left, and they left everything they knew. I mean, imagine leaving your home right now and just going to a new place where you know nothing about what's going on. Lithuania is one of those countries in Europe that is saying, hey, we are going to help you. We are going to open up our borders, and we're going to make sure that you have the ability to survive. Lithuania has offered 8,783 places to stay and 5,030 rides from the border from people leaving Ukraine. So this initiative is an initiative that is started by Lithuania. And what the correlation is with Palantir is that this is obviously a big data problem. I mean, you've probably got thousands and thousands of data points because you have to get the names of these individuals. You have to get their genders, their locations, their births. You got to get all this stuff integrated into a system. You have to see where they're coming from. You have to see where they're staying. You have to see where there's available portions for them to be able to stay. You have to see what food have they taken in? What is their diet like? Is this person, a certain religious type of person where if we give them this certain food, it'll be bad? I'm saying stuff off the top of my head. There's probably many, many, many more different things. But when you accept a refugee into your country, there's a lot of variables that go in, especially in the Syrian refugee crisis showed us about 5-6 years back. fact that there is an enormous amount of data that needs to be calculated and understood, especially in order to make sense of that data. So then we go back to this link. Why is this link opening up a foundry.gov.page.com for the login? Well, if this is a Lithuanian government offering an initiative via technology to allow Ukrainian people to enter into their borders, they need to organize that, as I mentioned above, which means they would be using foundrygov.com. They would be using Foundry not for commercial, Foundry for the government, which is the same product, but there's different use cases and different ways in which it can ultimately be applied. So this initiative right here, striprosku.lt, and .lt I'm assuming stands for Lithuania, and I'm sorry I'm saying this wrong. This connected to .foundrygov.com, it leads us to think it is not illogical to assume that this initiative is being done by Palantir. Now, am I stretching a little bit? Because I tried to ask myself that question before I make this video, because I don't want to stretch. I don't want to seem like I'm crazy. I don't want to put that stuff out there. I don't think this is a stretch, and there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, domain links are not supposed to work if there's not an actual domain that they're linking back to, right? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't link to anything. This specific initiative, copy and pasted on the specific website that is this Ukrainian refugee initiative from Lithuania, leading to a .foundry.gov domain name, and if you take one letter out, the link breaks, seems very logical to assume that Lithuania is using Foundry for government in order to incorporate the vast amount of data they're getting to actually be able to carry out this initiative. That makes sense to me. Number two, I don't think it's a stretch because of what management has told us. If management says bad times are good for Palantir, if management says, look, there is a chaotic world, Karp in his Stanford interview a couple months back in January, and bad things happen and there are bad actors, and in their recent shareholder letter that just came out, they are saying, hey, Europe is not safe because Europe thought democracy was just going to win. The annexation of Crimea, everyone thought after 8 years Russia was going to lay back, but chaotic actors, dictatorial actors, they don't stop when they get something, they want more. As a result, the world is unsafe, and as a result, there needs to be more of a technological commitment to defense spending that is using technology that can actually predict some of this stuff, because there's big data pattern recognition, like Palantir has done before with thwarting terrorist threats, which we know for a fact has happened. Which means that that entire shareholder letter was a sales pitch, but it was more so like, hey, you guys need to take care of this issue. This is a new age. We have the technology. We're the only company in the world that is actively being radical and saying, we want to protect you guys. We don't want to work with the bad people like other tech companies. We only want to optimize data, modernize data, so you guys can actually be protected and bad things can't happen in the world, because that's what we believe our moat is, which is software. That company that's saying that is Palantir. So from a technical perspective, the link is not breaking, and I know that's not the biggest deal in the world, but I also think it's the biggest deal in the world, because it's like the link's not breaking. It's leading to one thing. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize, hey, maybe this initiative is actually happening based on 2 + 2 = 4. And then the second thing is Palantir has been warning for months that geopolitical crises will happen. There's a reason why they bought gold. There's a reason why they have $2.3 billion on their balance sheet. There's a reason why they don't have debt. And there is a reason why they put out that shareholder letter explicitly saying, we need to get things done, and we're the technology to get those things done. I don't think they put out that letter unless they're actually doing some stuff with governments. It's one thing to put out that letter as like a sales pitch, and hopefully, some governments call you saying, hey, we saw your letter. We really want to incorporate Foundry for government. It's another thing to be like, we're going to put out this letter in a very kind of arrogant way in terms of, hey, you guys need us, you should call us up, versus like, we need to call you, because we're already doing it. We're already dealing with this Ukrainian crisis. Now, they can't come out and obviously say that. There's probably a lot of confidential data there, but they've basically said when things go bad, Palantir is called upon, and there's a long track record of history to know that actually happens. So those are my thoughts, and that's why I don't think it's a stretch. Ultimately, what does this mean for Palantir? Well, we're not going to know until the next quarters. I mean, I don't even think we'll know until 2023, maybe mid-2023, how much this governmental crisis necessarily affected them. Now, with defense spending running up, I think Germany is doing almost $200 billion now in defense spending instead of $100 billion. America just passed a $700 billion defense budget out of a $1.5 trillion spend. There is likely a lot more capital that is going to be allocated to companies. Shyam Sankar, CEO of the Morgan Stanley conference the other week, literally just said, hey, the government has 4 months to spend $145 billion on procurement, and it's got to be done by July. And we think that creates volatility in the upside for companies like Palantir to become software primes, which are prime software companies that you use over like some of the subcontractors, or you use the subcontractors after you like initially integrate with a company like Palantir. As a result of that, I think there is a meaningful opportunity for Palantir to appreciate in the upside of more governmental spending, because it is showing the use case, whatever is happening right now, which is a horrible situation that's happening, but their entire argument is bad things do happen, in order for Palantir to actually be able to get the benefits and show that their technology is useful when things go bad and when things end up not being the way we perceive them to ultimately become. Maybe in the next quarters we see increased governmental spend. Maybe those contracts come later. Maybe they can only show a certain portion of those revenue on those contracts. I don't know how it shows up on the balance sheet. I don't know how it shows up in earnings. I don't know how that affects the stock price in the short term. But this is why I'm invested in the company, because I believe the world is going towards a place where you need to try to stop these things. You need to try to predict these things before they happen, and you need a solution immediately when these things happen. And you cannot overestimate the fact that bad things do happen in a messy, messy world. Palantir is up right now. It is March 17, 2022. Palantir is up to $12.18. It is up around 14-15% over the past couple of days. The entire market is up, so we're going to see how Palantir lasts. I don't think, any of this stuff is necessarily reasons why it's up, but it has lasted decently over the past month, where other companies have gone even down more significantly than Palantir. And I think one of the main reasons is Wall Street and some institutions are realizing maybe this company is going to be worthwhile based on what's happening, and the stock price will appreciate as a result of that. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is this too much of a stretch? Is this actually something that's like reasonable? Shout out to EtherSquare for finding this, doing this due diligence. Really important announcement coming tomorrow, Friday, March 18th, for the Palantir community. Definitely make sure to keep notifications on. It's gonna be something that I think you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.